Hello, and thank you for watching Ask Ron, where Ron answers our Gold Club members' questions each and every week. My name is Adel, and I have Ron here ready to answer your questions. How are you doing today, Ron?
I'm outstanding. We got excellent weather today, and I'm very, very sorry for you folks living in Norway.
All right, always a reminder, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Ron, you have to be a Gold Club member, and we'll answer them each and every week at ronsgoldclub.com is where you get the membership. Our first question comes from Baleigh in North Carolina. I have a seller who would like to sell their home that has been listed with the realtor on the MLS for several months and is not selling. They have a VA loan on the home. The balance is $323,000. I asked this question during the live event on Saturday because I figured buying it subject to was the best option since they won't be able to qualify for another loan to build a home on a piece of their own land. You confirmed that as well. I am now taking your terms course and finally beginning to understand the difference between buying subject to and a wrap. Would it be a good idea to offer these sellers an option for me to purchase on a wrap?
That's the only way I'd buy it. That's to protect the seller because they just told you they're going to go qualify for another loan, and this loan is on their credit report. That's probably going to kill their chances, but they don't know that. That's my problem with subject to. Nobody really tells them the downside. None of the investors anyway. So buying on a wrap, now they got proof that there's enough income coming in to wash out that debt. And the only way you want to buy this is just take it over, and then no closing costs for the seller because they don't have any money coming. And you didn't tell me the rest of the story though. The next question is, do you want it? What are the numbers? Always start with the numbers. The math comes first. What is the real R on it? I don't remember even hearing that. Did you?
No, she just gave us a balance here.
So when you ask a half a question, you get a half an answer. Pretend you're over here like me, trying to absorb what you're saying. Give me the facts so I can make a mathematical conclusion for you, then you can decide where to go from there. I assume the house is in excellent condition. So also you should know that the VA will not call the loan due because the property transferred. So don't have any issue there. Your real issue is going to be, what's the equity in it left and what's the cash flow going to look like? And in fact, will you have a positive cash flow? Because I know you don't want a negative, but how much negative if you have to do it? This thing is fully financed, so probably got a high payment on it with the interest rates in the last couple of years. But I really don't want you to get into a negative cash flow situation, and unless you are ready and understand you might have a negative cash flow and you can handle it. So I would not mind buying it because I'm assuming it's kind of like new, it needs no repairs, but I need to know, see what the payment is. And then I'm going to ask myself, what's the rent that I can possibly get out of it, and assume I'm going to have a negative. Of course, you can probably find that out before you even close on it, but you got to do your homework and get me the rest of the numbers. And just shoot them to me. Don't wait till the next week or whatever.
A follow-up question said she was wondering if there's a VA loan.
Yeah.
Will it affect the seller's VA loan in the future to get another loan or their benefits or whatnot?
That depends on their entitlements. Adel and I bought one from a couple that had a VA loan. And they went out to Vegas before this house was sold and got another VA loan. But I don't know what their entitlement was. There's a ceiling that the VA has, but it's nowhere near what people think it is. They think they only buy one house. That's just not true. So you really need to call the VA and whoever's processing VA loans and ask them to get the right answer. I'm telling you, I don't know that answer. So go get it. Go do a little bit of homework, which is simply a call. Might even be able to go online and get it.
Craig from Georgia. Do you need insurance when you lease purchase a home from a seller and then you lease purchase the home to a tenant buyer?
Greg, you can't insure a house you don't own. So the seller's policy has to remain on it, and they should change it to a non-owner occupied policy because it's going to be cheaper than an occupied policy. And then when you put the tenant buyer in there, they have no obligation at all to pay you insurance because they're paying you the taxes and the insurance within the payment that they're making to you, which is rent, and then you're making the underlying payment, which includes taxes and insurance. The whole goal is to lease. You can't make money on taxes and insurance, so you're going to be paying the same amount that they're paying you. You can't charge them more, is what I'm saying. So you just collect it, and then it goes in with your payment. You don't need to worry about taxes or insurance as long as you don't have title to the property.
All right, part two of that. In the context of real estate transaction, how should the selling price of a house be determined when a tenant buyer requires 3 to 4 years to improve their credit score to qualify for bank financing? Should the selling price be based on the current market value or projected value in 3 to 4 years?
How I'd handle that is I'd give them 2 years. By the way, nobody needs 4 years to clean up their credit. Okay. Go to screenthetenant.com. I bet he could get you a 100-point add to your credit within 6 months. He charges $99 a month, and I've seen him do miracles with his credit. The credit's the easiest thing for you to fix, frankly. I'd only go 2 years, and then I'd tell him up front, if you haven't bought it by the end of the 2 years, don't worry about it. I'm not going to kick you out, but I do have the right to change the deal at that time. So, if you can get it for 2, you still stay in the house and rent it and keep on working until you think it's time to buy it. I'll never kick you out of the house as long as you're paying the rent and taking care of the house.
Matthew from Massachusetts. Do you know or have worked with anyone buying property and doing lease options in Massachusetts?
You're talking to an old man and asking me to remember. I don't remember it, I'll be honest. I mean, I got students in Massachusetts, but I don't know what I'm sure they've done lease options, but I don't know if that's going to be of value to you at all, because the last place you should go, is another student who's learning the craft as well. Might get some bad advice. I don't even know where you could go online. Do you think about it, Adel?
Yeah, well, he said he just got off the phone with a real estate lawyer who's telling him Massachusetts is very against landlords, and most of the laws go against the homeowners and protect the tenants. As far as he knows, they dig in their heels, can't get them out for possibly 6 months to a year. He's going to dig a little deeper into the Massachusetts laws, but he was telling me how the laws won't allow you for any kind of renter to pay more than first, last, and security deposit.
I don't believe that one bit. That's a security deposit. We don't collect those. We collect non-refundable option deposits. You need to go get another advice from someone who's in the real estate closing business, because this guy is the wrong guy. He thinks he's right, but he's kind of right, but he's wrong. All right? Collect an option deposit, and that's why it's on a separate agreement from the rental agreement.
Harvey from Oregon. Can a bank enforce the due on sale clause on a buyer in a subject to transaction if they find out that a house has been sold?
Yes, they can, but no, they won't. The bank can always call the loan due if the title changes and the seller's loan is still on the house. And honestly, that's the only way you're going to buy or even control. Seller's loan is always going to stay on them until you cash them out, which means when you get a tenant buyer in the house. They signed a CYA letter that they understand that and won't hold you liable. And frankly, nobody can hurt you anyway, because you're not guaranteeing the debt. The bank's not going to come after you. So I always say, how can I lose? What can I do now to fix it? So I've had one time in my entire 44-year career when a bank called a loan due or tried to, I told them I bought the house and I'm making the payments and our goal is to get it paid off. Leave me alone. They threatened me again. They said, no, got to come down and qualify for the loan. I said, nope, I'm not going to do that. And about 6 months into this, they sent me a letter saying, if you'll pay the attorney's fees, we'll reinstate your loan. I said, I didn't hire the attorney. You did. You'll pay him. And frankly, that was the last time I heard from him.
Cindy from Texas. She's talking with a seller who has a property that's free and clear, and the seller wants $450,000, which is a little high compared to the market value of $420,000. She likes the idea of getting monthly income, but doesn't fully trust creative financing because she's never done it before. What would be the best way to structure this deal to help her feel safe, owner financing or lease option? How can I build her confidence in the process?
I wish I knew their exact objection. Is it, how do I know I can trust you?
Just says, what would be the best way to see?
You're going to buy it on a wrap, or you're going to lease option. One of those two, Cindy. If the seller don't want to cooperate because they're worried about the bank, just lease option it from them. Establish a track record of maybe a year from now and go back and tell them you want to buy it now, if you even have it that long. No due on sale when a seller leases it to you. A lot of people don't know if the seller is leasing it and then somebody's paying them rent, the bank is only going to give them credit for 75% of that rent toward their debt ratio. Unlike when you sell it, they give you credit for 100% of what you collect. However, if the seller don't want to transfer the deed, then lease optioning is your only and last way to buy the house or control the house.
All right, James from Ohio. When working with tenant buyers on lease options, how do you handle maintenance and repairs? I know they're supposed to treat the property like an owner, but do you recommend giving them a repair limit, or should they handle everything once they move in?
I guarantee them for 30 days. After that, they know it's their responsibility, but you got to put it in your head. I'm only dealing with beautiful homes in beautiful neighborhoods. Most of them are less than 3 years old. Repairs are not an issue. There aren't any, okay? And yes, they handle 100% of them after that 30 days, period. Now, something big goes wrong, you're going to have to jump in and protect yourself. For example, let's say the central heat and air goes bad and it's got to be replaced. Not likely, it's only 3 or 4 years old, but let's say it is, okay? And now you tell them, well, listen, you're doing the repairs. And they come back and say, I can't do the repairs. You have no choice but to replace that unit to protect your investment and to protect you from any legal claim. That's why you should take some of that deposit money and set it aside in case something like that happens. You've got to always remember, that house sooner or later is going to want some of that money back. And if you don't have it, that's where people start getting into a pickle. I recommend you take at least 25% of every lease option deposit you get and put it in your little side escrow account for things like that. In fact, I want the checks to say escrow account, so you don't be writing checks out of there to, buy personal stuff with, because it's not your money. Truly, it's not your money. You got to do that, and there's nobody but you can do it. Nobody can make you do it. But if you don't do it, that's the beginning of the problems that landlords have because of poor management. You need to get to my business management boot camp, sir. It'll save you a ton of money going into the future. Business management boot camp. Go to ronlegrand.com. You'll find it there. It's in April, isn't it?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Brandon from California has 3 questions. First one, what % above market value will you usually not accept under when buyers are making you offers on houses for lease option?
That is a question that really can't be answered because it's case by case. The better the property, the nicer the neighborhood, and whether the market's slow or whether it's fast, will answer that question. The truth is, I don't know the answer to it because I don't make those kind of offers to them. They make them to me. What's the most you can put down? Is that the best you can do? What's the most you can pay per month? Wow. That's considerably less than what I expect. And you let them make you the offers. And that's how you're going to get the big deposits and the high monthly payments. And then we got this thing called down payment assistance program, where we offer them a real good deal to make extra payments above the rent every month toward their down payment. And those two combined will probably get you a negative cash flow on anything you're buying. There's no percentage that I can give that answer to you. It's how I feel about the market and the quality of the neighborhood and the price of the house. I always shoot for 10%. I won't take less than 5% down. So the purchase price, again, I always raise it, but sometimes not that much, If I raise the price $10,000, nobody's getting an appraisal on it right now anyway. And they might not ever buy it. They probably won't ever buy it. So that's a moot point if they don't ever buy. But, try to get at least 10 grand more than what I think the ARV is on the house. And then if I have to, I can come down. But you'll probably discover that these lease option tenant buyers don't negotiate with you about the price because they don't care about that. They want a down payment, and the monthly payment is what they care about.
All right, second question. What documents does the seller need to provide for the appointment when doing a lease option deal?
What does the seller need to apply?
I guess if he has an appointment to get a lease option signed,
Yeah.
He wants to know, does the seller need to provide him any
No.
documents while he's at the house?
No. You don't even get the seller involved in this thing. Seller don't even, look here, this is the lease purchase agreement right here. One sheet of paper, boom, boom. When you walk out of that house with their signatures right here, you're in control of that house. You've already closed it. There is no escrow period. There's not even a place on this for the deposit. Okay, so there isn't need of a deposit. Unlike if it's a purchase and sale agreement, when you walk out of the house with that, there's a place for the deposit there and more deposit when you buy, and there's an escrow period. Buyer and seller sign this thing. In fact, we had one signed yesterday, didn't we?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Selling a house. You don't own the property yet until you close, and the attorney closes it for you, I hope, and you put on the back here, you got 30 days to do that usually. So there aren't any documents you need from the seller, period. You're going to get anything you want from the seller the day you're in the house before the lease option agreement is signed.
All right, final question from Brandon again. If I only need the seller to sign the standard purchase and sale agreement, authorization to release information, what are all the documents the seller needs to sign at closing if it's a lease option deal?
All disclaimers and disclosures the attorney wants them to sign to comply with state law. That's up to your attorney. Because if you try to close this thing, you try to close the lease option without an attorney involved, I'm going to personally spank you. That's going to one day cost you a lot more money than you'll ever save trying not to use an attorney. It just takes one deal to wipe all that savings out. And you're not your attorney. You don't know what your attorney knows. So you got to find an attorney. You got to have a call with them and tell them, I want a price for closing those seller financing deals, cash deals, and lease options to the tenant buyer. In other words, let's arrive at a fee that covers any way you close on the properties, and that's measured in hundreds, not thousands. What do we pay? I think we pay $500 or $600, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe even $750 sometimes.
Yep.
Okay. And your closing attorney is not the kind of attorney that asks you for a retainer. Okay. If they ask you for a retainer, get the hell out of there quick. They're not your person. They're not a real estate closing attorney. Right? And I might start by seeing if title companies in my area have an attorney in them. In other words, the attorney doesn't necessarily work for the title company, but they've got an office in the title company. There's quite a few of those, and who better to work with. But the real thing is you've got an attorney that closes real estate transactions, and you should not have any problem at all finding those.
All right. That's all of our questions for today.
Wow. Okay. Those were good questions, though.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. keep coming, keep getting them in here. By the way, you guys be on the lookout now. Next Thursday at 7 p.m., I'm going to do a whole hour and a half training session on wholesaling houses. Alan and I will be here. We're going to go through it step by step for you and show you some that we've done. And again, that's the easiest and the fastest way to make money in real estate right there is wholesaling a house. It doesn't necessarily build wealth, but it builds cash in your bank account very quick. So sign up for that as soon as you get the invitation. See you next week.